Welcome to Binge Guide, the next show. Your shortcut to discovering what's worth watching. Forget endless scrolling, we've done the deep dive for you.
And today we're looking at something really interesting, a new film called Pavements. It popped up at the Venice International Film Festival back in 2024, and it's scheduled to hit U.S. screens, well, New York anyway, in May 2025.
Yeah, what really caught my eye about Pavements is that it's not just another music doc, is it? It sounds like a real mix, almost a hybrid, documentary, narrative stuff, even a stage musical, and a fake biopic.
Exactly. It's like a cinematic hall of mirrors,
Right.
all reflecting this iconic 90s indie band, Pavement. So for anyone who appreciates filmmakers, really playing with the form, this deep dive should be pretty fascinating.
Okay, so before we get lost in all those layers, let's maybe quickly ground ourselves in the band itself. Pavement. They came out of Stockton, California, right?
That's right, back in the 90s.
That's right, led by singer-songwriter Stephen Malkmus. And they had some pretty well-loved songs. You probably know them here. Cut Your Hair. Oh, yeah, definitely. And Harness Your Hopes. Which is funny because that one got huge, like, years later, didn't it? Viral hit.
Yeah, it's amazing how that happens sometimes. But despite that following, the band actually quietly disbanded back in 1999.
But that wasn't the end, because they got back together, right? For a big tour.
They did a sold-out world tour in 2022, which is actually a big part of this film we're talking about.
Right. And they're considered, like, super influential for indie rock from that era. I've heard them called the slacker Rolling Stones of the 90s.
That's a great description, actually. It captures their vibe perfectly, sarcastic, kind of irreverent lyrics that were often already out there.
Yeah, and famously ambivalent about, like, mainstream success. They weren't chasing hits.
Not at all. And for a lot of fans, that was part of the appeal, that indifference.
Okay, so that's the band. Now let's get into this film, Pavements and its weird structure. Directed by Alex Ross Perry. I know him from Listen Up, Philip and Her Smell.
Yeah, same guy. And he's known for shaking things up narrative-wise. So this film mixes real archival footage of the band from the 90s with footage from that 2022 reunion tour.
So you get the then and the now, side by side.
Exactly. But then here's where it gets really wild. He weaves in scenes from a stage musical called Slanted, Enchanted, a Pavement musical.
Wait, the full musical, based on their song.
Yeah. Apparently, it tells this story about an aspiring musician, kind of a Malkmus type, called Essam, and a woman named Anne, and there's an affair. It actually started previews in New York in late 2022.
Wow, okay, that's unexpected.
And there's more. The film also includes bits from a fictional, spoof biopic called Range Life, a Pavement story.
A spoof biopic,
Yeah.
seriously.
And get this, it stars Joe Keery from Stranger Things as Stephen Malkmus.
No way. Joe Keery is Malkmus, okay.
That's it.
Inspired casting for a spoof.
Right, and apparently these biopic scenes are deliberately shot in a really plain, almost cliche style, like Perry's poking fun at the whole music biopic genre itself.
Huh. So it's documentary, concert film, musical, and a meta-commentary on biopics.
Pretty much. Oh, and there's also stuff related to a touring museum exhibit called Pavements 1933-2022, a Pavement Museum, which featured, both real and fake band artifacts.
Okay, my head's spinning a little. This sounds incredibly layered. It makes sense why you called it a hybrid.
Definitely. It's really playing with how you tell a band's story.
So what was Perry's goal with all this? Why mash all these things together?
Well, Perry himself said he wanted to explore his dubious passion for music docs and biopics, genres he often finds kind of cliched.
Ah, okay. So he's trying to break the mold.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
He said he wanted to get away from focusing on perfect individual shots and instead capture whole experiences like the museum opening or the musical's opening night, just document them naturally.
Interesting approach, like letting the event itself be the subject.
Yeah, and he also sort of started from the premise that a band like Pavement deserves this level of cultural recognition, even if they weren't, selling out stadiums constantly.
That makes sense. They have a huge legacy in indie music.
And Perry already had a connection. He directed their video for Harness Your Hopes when it blew up again, and he was involved in creating that Pavement Museum.
Ah, so he's a genuine fan trying something different.
Seems that way. It took quite a team to pull it off, though. Perry wrote and directed, but you've got producers like Craig Butta, Robert Green, who also edited, which must have been a massive job.
I bet. Stitching all those different threads together.
Danny Gabay, Lance Bangs, Peter Klein, Arrow Cruz, Alex Needles, a whole crew. Cinematography by Robert Colodny.
And the music is key, obviously. Who handled adapting the songs for the musical part?
That was Keegan DeWitt and Dabney Morris. They had to, recontextualize Pavement's sound for the stage.
Which couldn't have been easy. Their sound is so specific.
Right. And then the musical itself had its own team, Craig Butta producing, again, choreography, set design, costumes. It was a big undertaking feeding into the film.
Okay, let's talk cast. Obviously, the actual band members are in it as themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Malkmus, Kannberg.
Yep. Stephen Malkmus, Scott Spiral Stairs, Kannberg, Mark Ibold, Steve West, and Bob Nastanovich. They appear as themselves, mostly in the reunion tour footage, I gather.
Which grounds it a bit. But then you have the actors playing them, or versions of them. We mentioned Joe Keery.
Right, Keery is Malkmus in the biopic scenes. Jason Schwartzman is in there, too, as record producer Chris Lombardi.
Oh, cool.
And Nat Wolff plays Scott Kannberg, Fred Hetchinger as Bob Nastanovich, Logan Miller as Mark Ibold, Griffin Newman as Steve West.
Wow, quite the lineup.
And Tim Heidecker plays Gerard Kozloy, who ran Matador Records for a while.
Perfect. And in the musical part?
Michael Esper plays Essam, the Malkmus-esque character. Zoe Lister-Jones plays Anne, and Catherine Gallagher plays Loretta.
Okay. And I heard there are musician cameos, too.
Yeah, apparently Malkmus and Kannberg pop up again, plus Kim Gordon from Sonic Youth and Lindsey Jordan's Soccer Mommy.
Nice. Adds another layer of indie cred.
Totally. So you can see the ambition just from the people involved.
Definitely. So how did this all land? It premiered at Venice in 2024.
Yeah, in the Orizzonti section, which often features more adventurous films. And the U.S. release is set for May 2nd, 2025, starting at Film Forum in New York.
Kind of a classic art house rollout. And the reviews?
Generally pretty good, yeah. High score on Rotten Tomatoes, decent Metascore. Critics seem to really appreciate the, imaginative, non-traditional approach. They liked that it wasn't just another talking heads doc.
That makes sense. It sounds like the kind of thing critics would latch onto. So, stepping back, what are the big ideas the film seems to be wrestling with?
Well, it really seems to dig into the whole idea of musical legacy, doesn't it? How we perceive artists from the past, how their stories get retold and even, reinvented.
Yeah, the musical and the fake biopic seem like prime examples of that, actively reshaping the source material.
Exactly. And it touches on memory, nostalgia, how an artist's identity isn't fixed, It evolves over time through different interpretations.
It also sounds like a critique of how musicians' stories are usually told on film. Like Perry's using those biopic cliches to make a point about them.
I think so. It feels like he's pushing for more creativity in how we make biographical films, especially about music, asking, what's the real story? And can one format even capture it?
Maybe suggesting that multiple, even conflicting perspectives give a richer picture.
Could be. And it's interesting that the actual band members in the present-day footage are shown as pretty normal people, still connected by the music, but not, rock gods.
Yeah, it avoids that kind of hero worship, which fits Pavement's whole anti-stardom thing.
Right. And that contrasts really nicely with the more theatrical musical bits and the fake biopic stuff. It highlights the constructed nature of it all.
And the title, Pavements, plural. It feels deliberate now.
Absolutely. It points to all these different versions, these multiple layers of the band and their story that the film is juggling.
So wrapping up, it sounds like if you're tired of the standard music doc formula, Pavements is definitely one to seek out.
For sure. It's a deep dive, but told in a really surprising way. It makes you think about how we actually remember and celebrate music history.
Yeah, it promises to be a real conversation starter, definitely marking May 2nd for that U.S. premiere.
It's just fascinating how Perry took the band's history, their music, the source material, and just layered all these interpretations onto it. It really makes you question what iconic even means for a band.
That's definitely a good thought to chew on as you figure out what to watch next. And that's our deep dive into Pavements for this edition of Binge Guide, The Next Show.